The Afroman trial recently wrapped up with a verdict that was returned in favor on every claim in Afroman's favor. And of course, as happens with many trials, people are curious what the jury was thinking. I'm beyond honored to be able to share insights from a juror from the trial. So, this was a juror that deliberated, and they wanted to share some insight on what was going on in deliberations to help people understand a little bit more about the people of Adams County and this particular jury. Because they wish to remain anonymous, the format of this interview is written, and I'm going to be reciting the questions and answers. So please don't take my inflection or tone of voice to impart any additional meaning outside the words itself. And in case you're wondering, this juror did provide 3 different pieces to verify that they were a juror, including their juror badge, confirmation that they had completed their service for the days of this trial in Cooley v. Joseph Foreman et al., and also their receipt of payment for servicing as a juror. And again, I'm incredibly grateful. We aren't entitled to hear what the jurors think in any given case, and I think it's awesome that this juror sat for their service and wanted to speak about it. So show some love to the juror in the comments, and let's get into the questions and answers. So question 1, what made you decide to reach out and speak at all? Answer, after the trial, I started to follow what people were saying. There were some questions that came up about the trial, along with some comments that I felt needed to be addressed. Some of the comments were about race or political sides, some asking if the judge thanked the jury afterwards. For race, absolutely no relevance in our decision making. Political sides, absolutely none at all was a factor. Nobody cared or even asked. And yes, the judge thanked us in the jury room. He was polite, smiled, and very friendly. Question 2, what do you most want people to understand about this jury and this verdict? Answer, in my opinion, I feel like we took our time to make sure we were getting the right verdict. It might seem obvious to the outside world, but once you're in the box and in deliberation, it takes on a completely different feel. It's no joke when you have people's lives in your hands, and you just want to make sure you make the decision that is correct, and by the law, regardless of feelings. I also feel like we had comfort and total respect for one another. Question 3. When you say in your message that the jury understood what was at stake, what did that mean to you? That it was a very pivotal case. The verdict in our hands could very well impact future litigations involving free speech and our public servants of the law. I cannot really speak for others, but this is how I felt, and I believe they did too. I believe that is why we took our time to learn and understand the matter at hand. We looked over all evidence, reviewed our notes, and overall made sure we were making a proper decision. Question 4. You said the jury took time to really learn the law of defamation and false light before getting deep into deliberations. What did that actually look like? Answer, we got the jury instruction book, which explained defamation and the 4 elements one must prove in order to qualify for defamation. It also covered false light and the 2 required elements for that. Each were pretty deep in detail, so we agreed that it would be wise to go over the laws and get a good understanding of how to judge a situation. Understanding preponderance, evidence, and credibility, there was a lot. More than I can remember now. A juror read through it page by page, and the rest followed along. Once we got through it and had an opportunity to ask questions along the way and also highlight important areas, we then moved on to comparing notes and evaluating the plaintiffs one at a time. Question 5. Was there a point where the case really clicked in terms of what your job was and was not? Answer, day 1, no doubt. During jury selection, we were told what the case was about and realized right away that it was about defamation and false likeness upon the officers from the defendant. Judge gave us a short briefing, and it clicked right away. We broke for lunch after jury selection, and when we got back, we went straight into opening statements, and we were off. Notebooks were left in our seats to take notes as we went. Question 6. You specifically said race and political differences did not drive the verdict. Why was that important for you to say? Answer, I'd seen posts after the trial dated pre-trial that mentioned race would be a factor, or that a certain political side, due to our area, would be a factor. That got to me because I live here. I go to area events such as the county fair and local town festivals and such. I see the hardworking, good people of this county all the time. That includes our law enforcement officials as well. I feel like those assumptions do not truly reflect our community. I also do not feel in any way that any of us had any bias towards either the plaintiffs or the defendant. I truly believe we just wanted to make the correct decision to the best of our ability as average, reasonable Americans. Question 7. How did the jury approach the plaintiff's monetary asks? Answer, it was pretty much unanimous that we felt it was too much. I won't disclose any numbers as we didn't really talk too serious about it since, in the end, All the verdicts were for the defendant. Question 8. It looked like most counts were unanimous, though some were not. Can you explain how the jury approached disagreement? Answer. Every plaintiff's case involved discussions on what fit the elements of the law. Everyone had their turn to speak individually on each plaintiff and share notes in a roundtable discussion format. I do not believe, from what I can remember, that anyone was treated differently for their opinions. We are adults, and everyone was very professional. That's exactly how it should be, and I believe it was. Question 9. Did the jury view the fallout mainly through a free speech lens, mainly through the consequences of the raid itself, or some combination of both? Answer. I can't speak for other jurors, but for me, I've seen it as more of a straight-to-the-point situation. Yes, it had a bearing on our free speech rights, but straight up was a claim of defamation and false likeness from public servants of the law, whom had the burden of proof, along with the preponderance to hurdle. The search itself didn't have a major impact, but the count of monies did play a factor, as it was an arguing point towards those claims of being called thieves. In the end, the plaintiffs in my decision just didn't have enough for me to rule in their favor. Question 10. Was there anything you saw people focusing online afterwards that made you think, oh, that really didn't play a role in our deliberations, or that isn't how we deliberated? Answer. I see that most people focus on two primary elements. Police raided the house, and the footage was used in some music videos. There were also social media posts that we had to sift through as well. I don't believe in guilt by association, and there was some of that going on. This person's sibling or spouse did something bad, so we must assume this person is bad too. End quote. It just had no bearing on my decision-making, but I can't speak for other jurors. I will say, I don't recall anyone discussing any of that. Heck, we all got that one relative we don't like to talk about. Question 11. Were there parts of the case that mattered a lot in the jury room that you think the public may be overlooking? Answer. I've seen comments of people saying how they would not keep from laughing in the courtroom and such. I will agree that some of the language and the words the attorneys would toss out would be surprising, but it never felt like it was a joking matter. A courtroom is quiet. You're taking notes. You're hyper-focused, clinging onto words and such. It's not like watching it on a screen. It's real and serious. I remember when the defendant took the stand and spoke. He was about 2 to 3 levels louder than anyone else was. And it was like, holy crap. Also, emotional moments have way more impact. Yeah, real life is different than screen viewing, and I think that gets overlooked a bit. Question 12. Did the jury see the defamation and false light claims as overlapping, or did they feel meaningfully different once you got through the instructions? I'd seen them differently, but similar, if that makes sense. There's some items that overlap, but technically they are different claims. Each plaintiff was discussed for each claim separately, probably why it took 6 hours. We had basically 14 claims to dissect. Question 13. How did the jury navigate separating whether speech was offensive from whether it was legally actionable? Answer. We, the jury of 8, were tasked with representing what a reasonable person might think. Therefore, we voted with a show of hands many times, and though it was not always unanimous, it was in fact meeting the required 6 or more out of 8. Question 14. Did Afroman's role as an artist matter to how the jury analyzed his songs, videos, and social media posts? Answer. In my opinion, not so much. I think it was mentioned that he had more followers than an average person, but nobody really seemed to be bothered by that. Celebrities are considered equal to normal citizens, and we treated him as such. Question 15. What kinds of evidence carried the most weight in the jury room? Answer. I can't really pick one over the other. We truly looked at everything multiple times. Testimonies, our notes, and exhibits for sure. Question 16. Was there any testimony or exhibit that became more important during deliberations than it may have seemed in open court? Answer. I'd rather not single out any persons or piece of evidence, but for me, yes. Question 17. Did it matter to the jury that some of the words or actions plaintiffs pointed to happened after the lawsuit had already been filed, including more recent content like the Lisa video? Answer. It came up in conversation. I looked at it as part of the trial. It was admissible evidence and allowed, then I must review it and view it as such, and not let the timing affect my judgment. I believe that is how everyone took it as well. Question 18. Did Afroman's testimony matter in a significant way during deliberations? Answer. No, not in a significant way. It showed that he felt strongly about his position. Question 19. Did the circumstances of the search and raid matter mainly as background context, or did they feel central to the jury's analysis? Answer. It appeared to me that it was building a backstory and trying to prove that they had a reason for the search and trying to prove that they didn't steal money. That is why being called thieves is one of their claims for defamation and false likeness. Question 20. How significant were the theft accusations during deliberations? Answer. It was a decent chunk of conversation. Did they prove they were not thieves? In my opinion, yes, but not enough. We viewed the report and discussed the testimonies of this report. We talked about how the report never made it into the defendant's hands. Therefore, in the defendant's mind, he could still very reasonably believe that he had been stolen from. Question 21. Did the jury spend much time discussing intent, truth, parody, or entertainment value? Answer. It came up often when reviewing evidence and sorting out what a reasonable person might think. We did discuss the use of satire, and comparisons to Saturday Night Live and South Park were mentioned. I believe we spent quite a bit of time sorting those items out. Question 22. Were there places where the jury felt it had to be very disciplined about what was actually proven versus what people strongly felt must have happened? Answer. Yes, of course. Nothing specific comes to mind, but everything as well, if that makes sense. I know I was very delicate and very focused on everything, or at least I felt I was. Question 23. Were there moments during trial where an objection or side discussion made you curious? Answer. The entire trial had me curious. I was mentally exhausted, and that was only after a 3-day trial. As I mentioned earlier, you're dealing with people's lives and livelihood. This is not something you joke about or take lightly when you are there to perform such an important task. I think the one that stood out was, I believe there were more witnesses lined up for the defense that ended up not happening. That had me a bit curious. Question 24. When the judge discussed why certain claims remained and that he was passing them on to the jury, did you treat that as helpful context? Answer. Absolutely. I've read a lot of comments about people disliking this judge, saying that he talked down to the jury or tried to persuade us. Yes, he explained some things that were pretty basic knowledge, but he doesn't know who is on the jury or what everyone's knowledge level is. I get why he explained things in basics at times and didn't hold it against him at all. As I said before, he came in after the trial, thanked us, smiled, and even had idle conversations. Question 25. Did the jury make anything of Afroman's expressive appearance, parentheses, the suit and glasses, in court? Answer. I can't speak for others, but when I seen him on day one, I couldn't help but smile. I mean, who comes to court dressed like the American flag? So yeah, it was a bit shocking to see, but once things got started, it didn't take long to realize that's just how he is. I was curious to see what day 2 would bring, but he wore the same suit all 3 days. Question 26. Did the jury talk about the difference between disliking speech and deciding whether the law allows recovery over that speech? Answer. Yeah, that came up when we were going through the jury instructions, so everyone would have a clear understanding. Question 27. Do you think this trial raised a broader question about how people use parody, humor, or viral content to draw attention to issues they want to comment on? Answer. Yes, but it's a slippery slope, and a person should tread very carefully. Public servants of the law are public figures held to a different standard. Therefore, this doesn't mean you can go out there and talk about an establishment just because you don't like the furniture they're selling. That is a different situation, and one might find themselves in hot water pretty fast. Question 28. Without speaking for everyone, did it seem important to distinguish between speech meant to go viral and speech meant to state literal facts? Answer. The judge let us know that items were posted and we could rule out the first element of defamation, parentheses, that a statement, oral, written, and or video portrayal of fact was published or made, end parentheses. We definitely focus on the speech meant to state literal fact versus opinion. Whether it was posted for viral or not didn't enter my mind as much. I can't speak for other jurors, though. Question 29. In closing, plaintiffs' counsel argued that the jury had the power to draw a line and say this went too far. Did that framing resonate in the jury room at all? Answer. I never heard it mentioned by others, but I think it had a little impact with me. It did put a reminder in my head that I had a lot of power in my decision. I don't remember it ever being mentioned in deliberations. I did see a lawyer after the trial make the comment on that statement. He said something like, quote, "Do we really want to be silencing people?" End quote. I never really thought about it till I heard that, again, after the trial, and I thought about it a bit more. I believe we made the correct verdict.
In all circumstances, the jury finds in favor of the defendant, no plaintiff verdict prevailed. So the matter will be concluded with defense verdicts.
And that's a wrap for the Q&A. So how cool was that? We got to be the fly on the wall, so to speak, for this juror's thoughts. And I can't express how grateful I am that they took the time. I sent over a sheet of possible questions, and they answered every single one, thoughtfully, and without stepping on the toes and speaking for anybody else. And seeing a cross-section of the deliberations, the thought process behind it, even just the structure. And we're going to look at the law first, and then we're going to look plaintiff by plaintiff through the claims. It's so educational. And the bigger picture takeaway that when you're called for jury duty, it's your right to serve on a jury. And maybe not every case comes with the bragging rights of, oh, the Afroman trial. But you have an important role in things that are very real, things that impact people. So I hope this juror's experience was enjoyable. I hope it was informative. I hope I did a good job conveying their answers without imparting my own inflection or anything like that onto it. And I hope it inspires you that if you get summons for jury duty, your first thought isn't, how do I get out of this? Or the next time you're in a room with a group of people and you're not all unanimous on things, you can still have a conversation. So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you again to our juror for taking the time to share this with us. Take care, you guys.